Thanks very much everyone for coming this morning. I just wanted to talk about a project that myself and a colleague, Liz Askew, looked at in evaluating e-learning. I just mentioned that Liz is the educational technologist and I'm the academic, so I kind of had the content and Liz had the design in this. So we all know that formative learning activities integrated into curriculum design that include feedback that is timely and useful is recognised to have a positive effect on learning outcomes. However, there is limited evidence that activities involving e-learning, so learning through the internet, can also have this positive effect, and particularly in sciences. So as illustrated in this picture, as an academic, sometimes this happens. We turn up to a classroom and there's no one there and we think that nobody's engaging. We also wanted to know that if the classroom is empty, is it also empty on the computer? So are the students engaging if it's online learning or through e-learning? So in short, for my minute summary, the aim of this study was to evaluate the effectiveness of e-learning formative activities in a biomedical science course, to assess if by using this resource learning is enhanced. To address the research question, the MELT framework was adapted to determine if the research significantly increased knowledge, and we did this by expressing it through improved assessments. Results showed that there was a statistically significant increase in mean summative assessment score and final grade for students who completed the formative e-learning module. From this study, e-learning resources was an option for us and for all educators, but particularly for those that have reduced face-to-face contact hours, and if you wanted to use the MELT framework to help teach the basic sciences. So this short paper was recently published in the Journal of Biomedical Education, and it's provided subsequent opportunities for student-led special research projects. So the ability to interpret clinical case-based scenarios in haematology is a vital skill for students entering a pathology discipline of hematopathology. So this basically is the study of blood disorders. And examples that you've probably heard of is leukemia, and in this module we used an example of anemia. So understanding testing procedures, interpreting results and providing morphological reports are essential skills for the accurate diagnosis and treatment of patients with blood disorders. So interestingly though, learning these skills has been influenced by the reduction in the number of face-to-face contact hours in the basic science content. And we also had a decrease in our teaching staff and experts in the field. So a challenge now existed to maintain the relevant content while still providing adequate practice to develop the necessary skills in the classroom. So utilising alternative teaching methods such as blended learning, simulation, or the flipped classroom helped to provide an opportunity to maintain quality teaching standards and satisfy the demands of pedagogical change that is evidence-based. You've probably already seen that there's a growth of blended learning and e-learning, and it's gained momentum over recent years. These new teaching and learning methods can be accessed and experienced in a variety of ways through technology. So not only through the computer or in the classroom, but this anywhere, anytime accessibility to handheld devices with the use of virtual slides or projected imaging, mobile applications, online modules are now a virtual reality immersive experience as well. So online tools have superseded the paper-based activities in most of our courses, and we found that these paper-based activities were time-consuming for the academic when providing individual feedback or when a physical presence in class was required to complete a paper copy. So we know that the millennial learner has grown up in a technological-driven environment with a routine involvement with e-learning. So due to the promise and potential of innovative e-learning, our study investigated firstly how the models of engaged learning in teaching criteria could be used as a platform for student engagement. Secondly, we looked at the effectiveness of formative assessment to assess knowledge and skills in haematology with and without immediate online feedback prior to a summative assessment. And thirdly, whether a new e-learning approach improves final grades through empirical research or is equivalent to the paper-based versions. So in previous years, the case studies in haematology consisted of what we called traditional in-class summative paper-based activities, where students were required to complete clinical case studies in class. They had no option to continue learning outside of class time, receive formative assessment with timely feedback, or have access to the equipment, and particularly this is a very lab-based class, so the laboratory was often closed or you could only access it in particular times. And the staff resources were also constrained. So beyond the allocated timetable, it was difficult to access this. So based on student and staff feedback, a need was recognised to incorporate formative assessment in the teaching and learning process that provided timely and relevant support to assist with learning outcomes prior to the students undergoing their summative assessment. And secondly, to increase the opportunities for repetition, which enabled the learner to interact with the material. So a model of engaged learning and teaching framework was adapted to fit the context to design and apply curriculum structure to engage the students and enhance teaching in this area. The clinical reflection skills framework was the most suitable framework to be adapted to conceptualise the study and reflect on the student outcomes. On this PowerPoint slide, I've listed this in a linear fashion, but in fact it actually went backwards and forwards. So we used the adopted CRS framework with the e-learning modules to develop them to have a student-centred approach. This included, which was very important, to establish a role and a purpose for the student for their profession. So giving them their identity as a pathology scientist or technician in their field. The design and use of the technology required a hands-on approach, which encouraged evaluating performance of clinical knowledge and skills in haematology that could be applied as an undergraduate student. But these modules were also developed so as a graduate you could go back and review these modules. To enable reflective practice, it was vital that feedback was provided in a timely manner and it assisted focused learning for setting future learning goals. Problem solving was based on clinical practice, real patient case studies, student-led inquiry and interaction, and the ability to choose the level of interaction and engagement by the student. During their program, students were assessed on their knowledge acquisition, their teamwork to communicate their understanding, and were also involved in communicating feedback. So I realise that this is a busy slide, so I'll try and explain it for you. In 2016, students completed 2 formative and 2 summative case study tasks associated with learning blood disorders. At completion of the modules, the students received 2 summative case study assessments. So on the left is task 1, which was the paper-based version. This was the traditional style. And task 2 incorporated what we called a modern style, which was the e-learning formative assessment. So both tasks assess the competency, skills and knowledge attained throughout the course using clinical scenarios of patients presenting with a blood disorder of unknown cause to simulate clinical practice. These cases involved patients presenting with anemia. The formative assessment associated with task 2 was offered as an online e-learning module. The online module consisted of the same resources as were supplied in class. However, they were available electronically and thus multiple attempts could be made with the e-learning module outside of the class. So the new e-learning module associated with task 2 was generated by us after reviewing evidence-based practice in e-learning modules. And to ensure alignment with the curriculum outputs, the CRS framework with peer-reviewed modules was linked to a clinical approach. The module itself consisted of case-based approach adapted from the paper version. It incorporated interactive and engaging activities to learn a clinical approach. The module comprised of adaptive feedback, virtual slides, which is the ability to take glass slides that we use with a light microscope, make them into an electronic format, put them into a software where students can zoom in and zoom out and change magnification on their computers. Drop and drag morphology, multiple choice questions, rollover and annotated answers. They also got extended feedback from a virtual biomedical scientist. She would pop up on the screen and help the students out. This enabled student-led learning with the ability to choose an activity or go on to do further resources. So I'm going to attempt to play a video. which is not going to work. It's going to come on very slowly, I apologise. The online e-learning module was developed using the Smart Sparrow Adaptive e-learning platform. The published module can be deployed and viewed online on the BEST network for adoption by other users, including students that were able to go on and adopt the lesson as well. In the online module, students could interact with the virtual blood film, which is coming up now. So for those that don't know, this is a blood film, and hopefully the video is going to play to show you how you can zoom in and zoom out and annotate the film. Students could complete the module anywhere and anytime, and they didn't need to be in the classroom. They didn't necessarily need the expert with them. They had their virtual biomedical scientist. Feedback was instant. So as I mentioned, the biomedical scientist would pop up when a question was asked and give them feedback, either give them an opportunity to redo the question if they didn't get it right after feedback, or give them access to further resources to try again. As an academic, I could view the analytical lessons and identify further learning that was required. So on the bottom here are all the questions. You don't need to be able to read it, but you can see the bar graphs there. And for example, on this question here, the average grade was 30%, which isn't really a good outcome in regards to this question. But I could look at this question in real time and then speak to the students either in their tutorial or adapt the lesson to this. The other part of the analytics, it showed how many students were getting the answer correct or not, but in how many attempts it took. So on the green is the students getting the question right, which was about 2/3 of the class. You can see that 1/3 in red got it wrong. Then they went on to get more resources or feedback from that biomedical scientist, had another attempt at that, and then over half of those students then got it right on the second attempt, and then you can see on the third attempt there. So we could look at the feedback analytics as well to see if the students were using it. So we had about 73 students enrolled that were invited to participate. They completed either the paper-based or the e-learning activity. In this graph here you can see for task 1, regardless if students did or did not do the paper-based activity, there was no statistical significance in their grade outcome. But for those students that did the e-learning module, there is a statistical significance that those students that completed it did far better in their grades. And it's interesting to note that task 2 actually came after task 1, and it's the same concepts. So they all got to do task 1 and could use that knowledge for task 2, but those that did the e-learning module did far better. So by adapting the CRS framework, we could conceptualise this study and reflect on the student outcomes and how they could use technology to learn. The data collected during our study indicates that an e-learning module that provides an engaging way to learn with immediate feedback on student performance has a significant positive effects. So this is just some of the comments from our students. So feedback from the student voice who participated in this felt engaged, supported, having personalised learning and a sense of teamwork, with an overwhelming response to have more case modules, which put a lot of pressure on us. So this all came about because there was a need to reform the curriculum in biomedical science to engage students who were disinterested in their study. So most of them could view science as hard or boring or uninteresting. So the adaptive e-learning was expected to address the changing needs for this current and future generation, and also for the teachers to identify problem areas and difficult concepts. So adaptive e-learning using the CRS framework described in this study allows instructional content that adapts to the learner's needs, or that can be immediate and can target a learner's specific action and provide an interactive and personalised learning experience. So to engage the students, I won't read out all of these, I'll let you read them, but from the perspectives from us and evidence-based literature, the design of the interactive adaptive e-learning module should demonstrate a purpose and have academic value, and also have key aspects for the students. This is likely to influence retention of knowledge and increase exam performance. So just to finish up, I just wanted to say that it concurs with the notion that formative assessment has a positive impact on student learning, and we already knew that, but now there's evidence that suggests that students want more of these e-learning lessons And it also corresponds with the thinking that we should let the students tell us how to teach. Of course, further research is needed into the development of the e-learning modules to assist learning using an adapted MELT framework as well. So thank you for your time today. If you are interested in looking at the e-learning module, it is available on the BEST network. Thank you.